online, and I can share that as well. I think I can see Dr. Katrina joining in too. All right. Okay. There's more joining in. Thank you. Thank you for joining in for today's webinar. So I would like to take this opportunity to greet everybody on this very special webinar. This is the 5th webinar, which is titled Heritage Stories from Oceania. And we've been focusing on the 5 nations of Melanesia. We started in Vanuatu by Kaitip Kami, and then we traveled across to the Solomon Islands, where we had Dennis Marita, who shared with us the important information about the largest standalone coral in the world. And then we went to Maleta Tokwakwasi at Milne Bay in Papua New Guinea, where she shared a lot of the amazing stories of ecotourism and her work with the community, how she's using heritage and tourism to empower her community. And then we recently visited Fiji last week, where we had Selina Mbale, also a Fijian woman working in the field of ecotourism, similar to Maleta, using heritage to work with our local communities as a way to also earn income for faraway communities in the outer islands, and our tourists as well benefit from visiting those places. And then today, we are very fortunate to go to New Caledonia. I was so happy that Dr. Christophe Sand accepted my humble invitation to be our guest today, just to come and talk to us very briefly. He's got a very busy schedule, and he's currently connecting in from Thailand. It's early in the morning over there, but he'll just join us to share a little bit about his background and his love for archaeology and all the amazing work that he does, around the region. But also, for those of you who are from Fiji, you'll know that he also went to the island of Vikombia in the province of Maduata, and also to the beautiful island of Naqelelevu on the province of the Aunrave. So we hope in the 20 minutes that he has with us today, he can be able to share a little bit, a snippet of the wonderful work that he does as an archaeologist, as a writer, and as a researcher for the beautiful country of New Caledonia. So to kickstart our program for today, and thanking everybody who's also joining in online, I have a music from New Caledonia that I've chosen, hopefully to wait for the others to join in, and we can enjoy that music, and we will wait for the others to join in so we can hear Dr. Christophe Sand sharing his story with us. So I hope you will like this music, and that is the music from New Caledonia.
Basila yani wait, tunasi Basilaya, Basilaya Niwet, Basilaya des terres interdites. Que le nuding et du route, toi sur la n'est partout, sur terre sacrée, nos terres ancestrales. Basilaya, Basilaya Niwet, Basilaya des terres interdites. Que le nuding et du route soit sur la n'est partout, sous terre sacrée, nos terres ancestrales. Basilaya, Basilaya Niwet, Basilaya des terres interdites. Que le nuding et du route soit sur la n'est partout, sous terre sacrée, nos terres ancestrales. Basilaya Niwet, que le nuding et du route.
Beautiful, beautiful music from New Caledonia, and I hope that this is a good way to welcome everybody and to welcome Dr. Christophe Sand to this webinar hosted by the California State University here in Los Angeles. So greeting everybody that are joining in via Zoom, and also those of you joining in from my online portal on Talanoa with Dr. T. Dr. Christophe Sand, Bulabinaka, and bonjour to you.
Bolavinaka, Tarisi, happy to be here with you for sharing a little bit of Talanoa, a little bit of stories. Thank you very much for introducing New Caledonia with this song. Tarisi, you don't know, but the song was about the chiefdom that our colleague Jacques Bollé is from. So you didn't choose it, you know, the ancestors made you choose just that one.
Wow, that is beautiful. Vilakavalevu, Dr. Christophe.
Yes.
So for those of us who are listening in, many of us have met you along the way. We've been fortunate to have worked alongside you, and there are others who have just heard about you and not know much about your background. We would like to ask you to maybe tell us a little bit about you, Dr. Christophe, your family, where you're originally from, and what schools did you go to when you were growing up?
Thank you, Tarisi. So I'm from New Caledonia, which is the southwesternmost archipelago of island Melanesia. Before starting, just a little thinking about my home island, which is going through a very difficult crisis since the beginning of the year. So just thinking about all the people over there. So I'm from New Caledonia. My background is really complicated in terms of genealogy. I have European, North African, and other kind of roots. My oldest ancestors arrived in the colonial setting of New Caledonia in the mid 19th century. And probably these very complex origins have been kind of the reason why I just fell into archaeology, if I may say so. When I was 8 years old, I probably had somewhere at the back of my mind some questions about my identity. And so when I discovered when I was in school this amazing work of the archaeology, that you could dig into the ground and touch things that ancestors had been doing and have been producing thousands of years ago. I came back home and I said to my parents, I want to be an archaeologist. Of course, they laughed, but 10 years later, when I had to go to university and I said, I'm going to do an archaeology university, they said, okay, there's nothing we can do to stop him.
Wow, that is amazing, that you had that vision, you had that dream, and of course your parents supported you along the way. Did you had to study overseas for that those subjects?
Yeah, at that time there was no university in New Caledonia. And I went to one of the very important universities of Europe, which is called La Sorbonne,
Mhm.
because it was the only place in France at that time where you could do Pacific archaeology. And I want to remind the name of José Garanger, who was my professor and my PhD supervisor. He was really central in promoting Pacific archaeology in Europe since the 1960s. Yeah, I did all my university in Paris, but was coming back regularly back home and doing field work. I started field work first in West Polynesia, because at that time it was already we had problems, political problems in New Caledonia, so it wasn't a good time to do archaeology there in the mid 1980s. And so I started on the small island of Wallis and Futuna, which are just northeast of Fiji. And I learned really a lot in those small islands, because when you have just an island 10, 15 kilometers long with a summary of 3,000 years of history, it shapes your mind, you know exactly after that when you come back home and you work on bigger islands, you have your ideas well set.
That is amazing. And I know, Christophe, in like many of us now know the word Lapita, and even many schools across the Pacific have incorporated a lot of the archaeological work that has been done for the last 50 years. And now you've also contributed to that as well. How did you, come across, Lapita work in New Caledonia? Plus, also, how did you start your career in New Caledonia too, Christophe? Maybe I'll divide it into two for you.
Yeah. So maybe not all the people online know this, but the name Lupita comes from a site, an archaeological site of New Caledonia. So the name is ours. It means the Kanak name is Hapeta, which means the place where you dig, the place where you make holes. So it was kind of ready to be an archaeological term. It was the first place in the early 1950s that was excavated and dated by two American archaeologists. One was Professor Gifford, and the other one was Richard Shuttler. And the dating, the carbon-14 had just been invented at the time. And the dating was very surprising for the Pacific, because it was nearly 3,000 years old. So this site became a really very important site. For me, my discovery of Lupita is already from childhood, because we had shops that were called Lupita. I knew before going to university about the work of Daniel Fremigaci on a couple of Lupita sites in New Caledonia. I was very fortunate on my very first field work, lasted 3 months on the island of Wallis in West Polynesia. I excavated there a site and found the very first lapita sherd from that island, which kind of in a glimpse of a few seconds, we went from knowing the history of that island that we knew through the oral traditions that was going back to the about 800 years, and suddenly we could, through the archaeology, give a second part of that story that was going back nearly 3,000 years. So tripling nearly the amount of time that people had been on the island. So kind of naturally, when I started with my two Kanak colleagues, Andre John Wecho and Jacques Bollet, and then my colleague David Barre, Tarisi, you know them all. When we started in the early 1990s, we created the Department of Archaeology of New Caledonia at the New Caledonia Museum. And we did a lot of excavation, a lot of field work. We were always in the field. And we excavated, of course, again, the site of Lapita, plus a great number of other lapita sites in New Caledonia. And we were very fortunate in 1996 to discover exactly the photo that you're showing, to discover the very first set of nearly complete lapita pots ever in the Pacific. All the pots that I had found before were that big, or this big in terms of sherds. And so maybe I can give a little background to this discovery.
Sure.
Just before getting into the field at the end of the year 1995, we had been informed by the administration that our Department of Archaeology was making too many problems, causing too many questions, and so that it would be closed.
Wow.
And we would lose our job. And just a few weeks after this decision, we found that big pit with these huge complete lapita pots, two complete lapita pots, 60, 70 centimeter diameter, very impressive. And I'm sure that it's the ancestors who made us discover those pots just at that right moment, because this discovery saved our jobs, but saved also the Department of Archaeology of New Caledonia and allowed us to continue doing archaeology up to now with the new generation now that I'm close to retirement, but there is a new generation of New Caledonian archaeologists following up.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you so much. I'm glad you mentioned that there's some younger generation coming up to, to fill in the gap, so to speak. Are there a great interest, Christophe, or our young Kanaks interested in this field of archaeology?
I can say yes, and I can say no. I will start with the no.
Okay.
In our islands, wherever you go, in our islands, what people, the younger generations think about first is about doing jobs that can directly influence the living of the population. Thinking about doctors, thinking about working in the energy or working in public services or those kind of things. And so, honestly, archaeology is not on the top of the list. But my other answer will be yes, because in New Caledonia, like everywhere else in the Pacific, the people are really interested by culture, interested by history, interested by heritage. And so once in a while, you always have one or two younger that come up and say, oh yeah, well, I'll try to become an archaeologist. And so I'm pretty proud to have been able with my Kanak colleagues of my generation to have been able to have one, two, three, four, five now New Caledonians
Wow.
that are professionals in archaeology in New Caledonia. So the next generation is on board, is taking over the job and is basically following up.
That is amazing. And I think that's testament to your hard work too, Dr. Christophe. I know it's not easy, as you mentioned, your department was, going to be closed down. And as you said, wow, your ancestors must have felt at that time, no, we need these people, we need this work to be done. So that was amazing. And look, 2024, you're still here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, with so the maybe one important thing to say is that doing archaeology just for the sake of being in the field and having fun, because Tarisi, you know how fun it is to be in the field, is just part of the work. With John and Jack and David, our scope was not to be on the field. Our scope was to bring information to the people about the history, the past, the heritage of New Caledonia. So we have done a huge amount of liaison, being on television, being on the radio, being in the newspaper, publishing a lot of small booklets and easy to read kind of information, going into the tribes every time we would have a result or we would have new things to do, and going into the tribes to present our research, what we had found, so that the people would know what had been found in their own place. And to make sense of what we were doing and what we were finding, we also needed to have connections and understandings of what was going on elsewhere. And this is how we came to organize a number of programs, not in New Caledonia, but around the region. My Kanak colleague Jacques Bollet was the only trained Melanesian in studying human remains. So he was sent from New Caledonia to be part of the team who excavated for a number of years under the direction of Stuart Bedford and Frédéric Valentin, the Teuma burial ground, the Lapita site of Teuma in Vanuatu. We had a number of other programs, and one of these programs was on Fiji. With you, Tarisi, at the time at the Fiji Museum. So we teamed with the archaeology team of the Fiji Museum to work on a very isolated island at the very northeastern tip of the Fijian archipelago, which is called Cikobia and Naqelelevu. And the reason I choose that island and the nearby small atoll of Naqelelevu was because in the oral traditions we had recorded on Futuna Island in West Polynesia, this island of Cikobia was appearing very regularly. And the people from Futuna were saying we had regular connections with this island of Fiji. And we had families that were living on Naqelelevu. And so I didn't choose Cikobia just because it seemed to be very far away. I chose it because of these old links and traditional links between Fiji and West Polynesia, between people that are called Melanesians and people that are called Polynesians, and you can understand that it's much more complicated than just that. And so we had a 3-year field work program. We did a lot of mapping on Cikobia. We found those huge Fijian sites. I mean, with some of the walls that were up to 4 meter high, 300 meter long. We found, very luckily, the first arrival of Lapita people on Cikobia a little bit less than 3,000 years ago. And we had a recording of the oral traditions. Of course, I didn't do the recording of the oral tradition. It was the work of our dear colleague, Sepeti Matararamba, who passed away last month, and so 2 months ago. So just a little salute to him. And so it was a teamwork. It was a team effort. It was, again, with the idea of bringing back to the population. Here you have these huge fortification walls on Rukunikoro forts. And hoping I'm not too long, probably the most long-standing thing that we might have left on Cikobia is that this fort that you see here, Rukunikoro, we proposed to the local landowners and to the community to make a restoration of it, to rebuild the crumbling walls, to refit the platforms, and to leave behind, at the end of the work of archaeology, not only books, not only photographs, not only dates, but also a heritage site that people could use for tourism, that people could use even for their own pleasure of going to visit a heritage site on their own island. And so we have tried over the decades, whenever we could, to leave behind something that people could continue to use, especially through heritage places and conservation restoration of those major heritage places on the islands.
Wow, thank you so much. I mean, looking at these photos, Christophe, yeah, it's going down memory lane. I'm just so happy there's a few people in the audience who are remembering the work that we did in Cikobia. And it's wonderful that these kind of projects, you are not only leaving the island and going back to New Caledonia, you've left something behind, as you said, to empower the local communities to do work after we leave. So thank you so much. And also remembering our colleagues, Mr. Sepeti Matararamba and his family in Mokosoi in Pacific Harbor. We acknowledge him and his amazing work that he contributed to Fiji, and acknowledging him too for joining us in Vicumbe with Dr. Christophe and the team. Thank you so much for that. What are some of your memories now that we've moved from Cikobia to Naqelelevu? What made you take us to Naqelelevu that year?
We had put Naqelelevu because one of the high families of Futuna Island, which is called Caledonia, and this family says that their origin place is Fiji, and this family owned the island of Naqelelevu for copra, for coconut production in the mid-19th century. So I wanted to kind of see if there was something on that small island. It's not very big, just two kilometers long. On that small island, if there was something that could kind of indicate the presence of these Futunans. And I have, it's that arrival, Tarisi, maybe you remember, that arrival is probably one of the most emotional I ever had. When we arrived on that small island, you had only 3 elders living there. And they were so remote that the only thing that they gave us for the sevu sevu, for the ritual greeting, was coconut to drink. And it was very, very special. And so the next day, yeah, here's Naqelelevu. And the next day, we started surveying, and we found a fortification really in the most difficult place you could think of. It was just in a very limestone environment, very difficult to access. And the people, the older people said, well, this is the place where the people from Futuna did fight against the people of Fiji before being driven away. So that was already, there was a sign there. And then in the afternoon, we went to the burial ground of Naqelelevu. And it's the pre-Christian burial ground, so it was all in bush. And we were walking around the burials, and suddenly I see 3 burials, which instead of being kind of rounded or oval shaped with ovals built in stones, they were with how you say, cemented sand plex slabs. And I looked at them, and Tarisi, you might remember, I got completely crazy. And I said, these people there, these people are Futunians. They come from Futuna. These are not Fijians. And because in Futuna, this is the way the burial grounds are built. And so you could very easily see the difference between the shape of those burials and the shape of the more classic Fijian burials. So, of course, we didn't excavate. We just made a map. But I'm 100% sure that if someone one day goes back and has the permission to excavate those burial, it's people from Futuna. I'm 100% sure. So here was the link. It's not only about you know, sharing adzes or sharing potsherds, because in Futuna we find a lot of potsherds that come from Fiji, but it's also sharing people. And here in Naqelelevu we had people from Futuna that had been buried in the Futunian style, even if we were in Fiji.
Wow. That is amazing. I still remember your reaction, Christophe. Just your happiness, you know, particularly when you were hearing the oral history that was recorded, you know, in Futuna, and then coming over to the island and you saw the evidence of that story. No wonder you were crazy that day. That is wonderful. Wow. And I also remember when we were on the island of Kambara, Christophe with Dr. Jeffrey Clark, same thing as well. He went to Tonga and he's heard the stories in Tonga about a Tongan village that is on the island of Kambara. So eventually when we came to that part of the island, it was low tide. So when the boat was coming in, Dr. Clark, Jeffrey Clark, looked over and saw the blocks of where it was called makapapa, makapapa, which is it's flat. They flatten it to decorate the grave.
Exactly.
Again, it's just amazing, you know, like just the reaction of how I remember seeing you that day in Naqelelevu. It was very similar with Jeffrey, you know, so excited to connect the stories from Tonga to Kambara, and for you connecting Futuna to Naqelelevu. So for you, Christophe, knowing about the oral history that are known in Futuna and seeing the evidence in Naqelelevu, what would you like to share to our audience today about the importance of oral history?
Well, oral history is central to understanding the links between people, because it gives flesh to the bones of archaeology. You know, you can always say, okay, we have found a potsherd that was produced from a pot produced 1,000 kilometers away, or a stone adze or something like that. But what is shared in the oral traditions is links, is names, is stories, is events, and these kind of things that are not material, you cannot have them through the archaeology. So the binding of the archaeology and of the oral traditions is vital to make sense for the Pacific Islanders of their old stories. Archaeology can bring a number of informations that the oral tradition didn't keep, because oral tradition is not interested by everything. But oral tradition bring a huge amount of information that archaeology cannot bring. And what is really today appearing through the work of archaeology and the sharing with the oral tradition is how much the Pacific Islanders have, over the last centuries before European contact, been very much in relation, in networks between the different islands, between the different archipelagos. I mean, people were not isolated on their islands. They were connected to web, to networks of relations between chiefdoms, etc. And you cannot understand, for example, the old history of the Loyalty Islands in New Caledonia if you don't understand the links of the Loyalty Islands with southern Vanuatu. You cannot understand also, to take another example, the arrival of the Protestant and Catholic missionaries and the first years of their work. If you don't understand that the link between the Kanaks in New Caledonia and these first arrivals was the Polynesian language. Can you imagine? Because you had in New Caledonia people of Polynesian descent who spoke Polynesian languages all around the coasts. And so the first Catholic missionaries who came to New Caledonia, one of them had been a missionary on Wallis Island before. And so this is through him speaking the Polynesian language, and through these Polynesians in Kanak villages, they could interact. Same thing. The Protestants, the first that were sent, were people from Samoa, Rarotonga, etc. So Polynesians. And these teachers from the London Missionary Society, when they came in, their way of interacting was not through the Melanesian languages, but through Polynesian tongues. So understanding all this is not only about the very far away past, but it gets also into the colonial history.
Oh, that's so interesting. Thank you so much for highlighting the importance of language. Yeah. So you can see here that language connects. Yeah, as you said, 3,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, and even recent through the colonial past. Thank you so much, Christophe, for embedding that in our thinking today. So to our audience who are listening in online and those of you who are on Zoom, we just want to take this time to thank Christophe for sharing those beautiful words with us today. That's the only time we have right now, because I know he's got a long day in front of him. He's currently connecting in from Thailand, and I'm here in Los Angeles, and I know many of you are connecting in from all over the Pacific. So thank you so much, Christophe. So before we open it up for questions from our audience, Christophe, any last advice or empowering message that you want to share to our young folks that are listening in today with the importance of our heritage and especially archaeology and oral history?
Yes, definitely. There is something that must be understood by especially Pacific Islanders. It's that today with climate change, all our beaches are eroding. Every single island of the Pacific has its beaches eroding. And the ancestors have lived just at the back of those beaches. So it means that in the decades to come, erosion, because of climate change, because of big cyclones and all this, will wipe away part of the history of every single island. And it will take away forever part of this history. All the Lapita sites are coastal sites, for example. So it's not only about being interested about the archaeology or the heritage or the past of the islands. It's also about taking care of the study of this heritage before it vanishes forever. And when I say forever, that's the truth. If we really have a 1 meter higher ocean stand in, say, 50 years from now, a lot of the old archaeological sites of the islands will be gone in the ocean and will never come back. So we need Pacific archaeologists to be able to take care of this heritage and study it before it disappears. I think that was the urgent message I wanted to convene as a kind of a head of ICOMOS Pasifika. And so if you want to join our ICOMOS Pasifika, please contact Tarisi or Mary Tui in Fiji and Elizabeth and or myself. And we need practitioners from the Pacific to look after the heritage of the Pacific. Naka.
Wow. Vinaka, Naqelelevu, Dr. Christophe, for those wonderful words of encouragement. I'm so happy that Auntie Meritu is here. So as Elizabeth Edwards, and these are the team from ICOMOS Pasifika who are doing such an amazing work, helping and advising our Pacific Island nations in managing our own resources. So at this time, I would like to open it up to our audience. If you'd like to say a few words or ask any questions or make any comments, the time is now for our audience in the Zoom and also those of you online, while we have Dr. Christophe with us. And you can unmute and speak for those of you in the Zoom room. Dr. Lisa, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Dr. Katrina Ondimere. Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you. This has been great. I've known Christophe for over 30 years and hearing new stories and things has just been fascinating. So thank you so much for letting me know about this. And thank you, Christophe.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Yeah, maybe next year I will invite you, Lisa, to come on board. Yeah, would that be a good idea?
I'd be happy to. I'm on sabbatical next year, so I have much more time. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you. Dimere? Maybe we'll give Dimere a few minutes to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Tarisi, and thank you, Dr. Christophe. We're tuning in here, Elizabeth and I from Fiji. As Christophe said, he's our ICOMOS Pasifika president. And ICOMOS Pasifika is the International Council on Monuments and Sites. As an NGO, a regional NGO, the idea came about when we were on the Great Wall of China, and we said they're always talking about Asia Pacific, and we said we should do something for the Pacific. And so from that time and the inception in 2007 in Tongariro in New Zealand, when they had all the World Heritage site managers come together, we said, okay, let's do it, and it hasn't been easy for us. So we're looking forward to Christophe. Dr. Christophe is our president, and he was saying that he wants to hand over the baton, but he's been doing a great job. But yeah, we really encourage other researchers, young academics, the association, they're also forming an archaeology association that we hope will happen in the future. And I just want to ask Dr. Christophe, what would you advise for, those aspiring archaeologists, and maybe you would be interested in taking up the helm of ICOMOS Pasifika as you've done? Thank you. That's my question.
Minaka, working with ICOMOS is working on question of world heritage. That's the central theme. ICOMOS is the advisory committee for UNESCO for World Heritage, and so working with ICOMOS is working with the best world specialists in heritage around the planet. And it allows to kind of have a very wide focus instead of just being concentrated on one archipelago, one time period, and to understand how much the question of world heritage is really the top part of a triangle that gets all the way down to grassroots heritage in every single island. So it's not about elite when you think about working with ICOMOS. It's about making sense of all this smaller heritage to, how can I say that? To give some sort of power to the most impressive part of this heritage that has or should have World Heritage status. In the Pacific, we have a number of just amazing, amazing heritage that very few people really look after or know about. In New Caledonia, for example, we are working on two types of heritage. The underknown but just spectacular taro pondfield terraces. You know, when you think about these huge terracing in the Philippines or in Vietnam or China, well, we had exactly the same thing done by the Kanaks up to the 18th, early 19th century. It's just breathtaking. But it's also about colonial history. We have in New Caledonia, just like in Australia, a convict heritage that is just fascinating. But take now Fiji. In Fiji, probably every single island of Fiji has at least one or two fortifications from the old times. We know for some of these because we have archaeologists have been doing the mappings, but there are a huge amount of them that we don't know about. Now that we have new survey techniques like LiDAR, the day LiDAR will be put and used randomly in Fiji, I bet you that the discoveries will be just unbelievable. People will be crazy about what will come up. We see it in, I have just done a small LiDAR project on the island of Wallis in West Polynesia. You cannot imagine the density of sites that comes up. It's just, even myself, I have been doing fieldwork on that island for 40 years. Even myself, I couldn't imagine that the density was so crazy. And so it's, to come back to ICOMOS Pasifika is really about having a meaningful approach to the heritage of the Pacific with this kind of umbrella and expertise of World Heritage. But it's not an elite kind of approach. It's really from down, up, and not up, down.
Thank you, Christophe. And it's about the networker, having a network of professionals who can be called upon to look at the nominations and make comment, but also knowing that there are, archaeologists, anthropologists, in the Pacific, and we've been really trying hard to get more people to join ICOMOS and to take a leadership role. So, anything else you'd like to say on that?
Yes, it's our older generation will step down in the decade to come. For me, it's in the years to come. So, and so we need the younger generation to get on board and to take over. And it's ICOMOS. It's all about networking. Networking in the Pacific, networking between different institutions in the Pacific, but networking also in the region. And Meritui, you know very well about it. You know, Australia, ICOMOS, Southeast Asia, the Asia Pacific group, etc. And it's all the way to UNESCO and ICOMOS International in Paris. So it's creating a group of people that can liaison the one with the others. When you have a problem somewhere in an island or an archipelago, you know to whom you have to ask questions, and you know that the people will answer your questions. Also specialists that might come into the field to help you if there is some sort of urgency. So clearly, it's about building expertise on a regional level, so that people from one side of the Pacific can trust that they will get help from the other side of the Pacific if needed.
Thank you for your responses. And we look forward to more people putting their hand up and for membership.
Yes, we need them. Please join.
Yes, please join. So I put it out on the chat for those of you who are listening in. Check out their Facebook page, ICOMOS Pasifika, and find out more information. If you have any other questions, feel free to email the administrators and they can contact you. Give them your email, and Liz, Edwards, or Auntie Mary, they can be able to respond to you. So it's not only just Fiji, but right across the Pacific. Wonderful work that ICOMOS Pasifika is doing. As Dr. Christophe said, many of us are getting older and wiser. We have to leave the space for the younger ones to fill in the space. So while we're still in this space, we want to encourage as many of you as possible, particularly the young ones, to come into the space of archaeology, history, anthropology, so we can be able to document our own history and work with our own community. And I really like what you said, Christophe, that it's not an elite type of work. It's from the community up, working with the members of the community and working alongside them. So thank you so much for that, Christophe. We only have 2 more minutes left. And I promise you that we're going to keep it as short as possible. No Fijian time. We'll keep it New Caledonian time. Yeah, Christophe?
Yeah, we are probably even worse than your Fiji time. So it could last forever if it's New Caledonia time. So.
So maybe acknowledging those who are joining us online. Thank you so much for listening in to Christophe's wonderful sharing and the comments from our audience. Over to you, Christophe. Last comment before we close.
Well, Tarisi and everybody online, thank you very much, Tarisi, for inviting me, Naqelelevu. And I take this opportunity to send my best regards to the colleagues and to the people in the islands. And just maybe it's wise to finish by thanking all the communities of the islands that over the decades have allowed us to work on their land, on their premises, and have been taking care of us when we were in the field. Tarisi, you know what I mean. And be able also to share our results with them. And so doing archaeology in the Pacific is something really special. It's not about only discovering the past. It's about sharing time and nyangona and drinks with the people on the islands and listening to their stories and their heritage and cultural practices. So I'll finish with that. Naka.
Naqelelevu. Thank you so much again, Christophe. From all of us here who are listening in, I feel that this is the first of many Talanoa sessions, Christophe, maybe after the new year, just as with Dr. Lisa and Andy Mary and Dr. Katrina and the others who are joining in. I will put together a program for 2025 and I will send you an invite. Please say yes to my invitation. Thank you so much, Christophe. Enjoy your time in Asia and all the very best and Happy New Year. See you next year.
Oleti, thank you very much. Mode Mandra.
Naka, Mode Christophe.
Have a nice Christmas and Happy New Year.
Naka,
Thank
good to you. Naka
for the
Dimere,
invitation.
Naka Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining in today. What a wonderful time. Thank you, Kaitip, my brother from Vanuatu, who's also listening in. He's here in New Mexico, in Arizona. Thank you, Kaitip, for joining me. And it's wonderful that Kaitip is here, since he was the first speaker from Vanuatu, and he's joining Christophe, who is our last speaker for the series. Thank you, Kaitip. All right. Okay, so for those of you who joined us late, there's a lot of latecomers. I will play the song again. That was a beautiful song that I chose. And as Christophe said, it was our ancestors who made me choose this song. What a beautiful song it is to connect back to our Vanua, our brothers and sisters in New Caledonia. And what a wonderful way to connect with everybody today. Thank you again for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Let's enjoy this song one more time and acknowledge our brothers and sisters from New Caledonia. Thinking of them as well, and our brothers and sisters from the island of Cikobia and Naqelelevu in Fiji.
mama ukinisa nitijunesi kwa isama suini ve mama ukinisa titriangeti wit basilaya basilaya ni wit basilaya des terres interdites que le navire était où toi sola les bateaux sous terre sacrée nos terres ancestrales basilaya basilaya ni wit basilaya des terres interdites que le navire était où toi sola les bateaux sous terre sacrée nos terres ancestrales basilaya ni wit que le navire était où
Naqelelevu, everybody. Thank you again for joining in today. Saying my farewell to all of you. You all take care, and I will see you again in our next webinar. Naqelelevu, goodbye for now. Naka. Naka Christophe, Mwave.